Assalamu alaikum students, hope you all are doing good. So it's time for social studies lecture, and in before starting my new lesson, I would like to give a brief review of the previous one. As you know that we were studying the chapter the earth in the space. That was a lesson number 1, and in my last lesson I explained you about the shape of the earth, how it was studied by the astronauts, who was the first astronaut who reached on the moon, and how the scientists often use spaceships and the space probes are used to study the universe. I told you that the cameras are usually attached in the spaceships, and they send to the universe or galaxies to find about the various facts and figures about them. Even I also told you about some of the important satellites and telescopes, including the Hubble Space Telescope, and I show you the picture of it, and I show you the picture of Chandra X Observatory. I explained you in detail about the orbit, that it is the path on which the Earth revolve around the Sun. I told you about the axis. Axis is basically the imaginary line running from the North Pole and the South Pole, and the Earth usually rotate on its axis to change the seasons and the day and night. I told you about the equator. That equator is a middle horizontal line that runs from through the center of the Earth from the west to the east. I also explained you the term hemisphere. That hemisphere divides the Earth into two halves, as mean half into the northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. So students, I was really pleased to find out that you have completed your home assignment too, that I have given you. Now it's time to start the next lesson. The topic which we will discuss today is rotation, revolution, solstice, and equinox. First of all, we will discuss the rotation and revolution. Basically, people often confused by the terms rotation and the revolution, and they might think that they are the same thing. Though the meaning of both the rotation and revolution are moving, but they are not the same thing. You must identify between these two terms. Let me explain you what is a rotation first. You can see this is the earth, and this is the axis on which the earth is rotating. So rotation is basically moving of the earth, movement of the earth on its own axis. Alright, it rotates on its own axis, and it causes the changes in day and night. It causes the changes in weather too. But what is a revolution? As you know that suppose this is a sun, and a lot of planets around it, they are the orbit. It is the orbit, and this is the earth. So earth is revolving around the sun. I use the term revolving. So this is a revolution. Rotation is only the movement of the earth on its own axis, that the earth completed its one rotation or its one circle in 24 hours. You can say it one day. But revolution is the movement of the earth around the sun, movement of the earth around the sun. This is known as a revolution. I can explain it to you by showing is an example. One revolution Mostly you can see in this picture, this is the sun. You can see this is the sun, this is the earth. The earth is revolving. Use the term revolution. Earth is revolving around the sun on its own orbit. Alright, and rotation, the earth, it's also moving, spinning. Rotation is a spinning movement. Have you ever seen the spinning ball? Just like the spinning movement, earth is also spinning around its own axis. This is known as rotation. So this is a very slight difference between rotation and revolution. You have to keep it in your mind. I can read it out from your book for your clarity. Rotate. The earth spins or rotates from west to east on its axis. It takes 24 hours or 1 day to rotate once. I told you already the whole term rotate. At the same time, the earth is moving around the sun. This movement is called revolution. The earth is also moving around the sun. This is called revolution. The earth takes a year to revolve around the sun. So when our year comes to an end or the next year starts, we can say that the earth has completed its one cycle around the sun, or we can say that the earth is completed, has one revolution around the sun. So there is also one difference between the rotation and revolution, that rotation is just completed in 24 hours. So if that causes the conversion of the day to the next day, but the revolution change, it requires the 365, or in case of leap year it requires the 366 days to complete its one round, its one revolution around the sun. That is very important thing to identify between them. The moon is the earth's natural satellite. You can see in this picture the moon is also revolving around the earth. Alright, as earth is revolving around the sun, similarly the moon is also revolving around the earth, and each complete revolution takes 28 days. So whenever we say that, we always find out, for example, that is the moon has sighted for the Eid al-Fitr or Eid al-Azha, that means that either the moon has completed its one cycle or not. So when the moon has completed its one cycle, so always the next month has started. The rotation of the earth causes day and night. This is also important thing. The rotation causes the day and night. The rotation causes the changing of the day. The different seasons and the climate condition on the earth are caused by its revolution around the sun and by the tilt of the axis. How is it so? So keep it in your mind. I can explain it to you by showing this diagram. How the day and night are caused by the rotation. When the earth spins around its own axis, so it causes the days and night. For example, if this side of the earth facing towards the sun, so in this portion of the earth, in these countries, we will have the day, and at the same time in these countries we will have a night. But if the earth spins and is facing the sun, in when these countries will come to this way, so it will be the day in this these countries and night in these countries. So similarly, this is the moment. You can assume that this is the earth and it is revolving around the sun. So when it is revolving, and when these countries that are facing the earth, so in these countries at this time, this will be the summers, and at the same time the winters. and when the earth spin and also revolve, and these countries that were winter at these side, when they were facing the sun in this direction, so these will be having the summers and it will be having the winter. So always the part of the earth that face the sun, it will be having the hot climate, or you can say the summers at that time, and the other portion of the earth the people will be enjoying the winters. So this is the phenomenon. Revolution causes the changing of the weather, and rotation causes the changing of the days and nights. Places that are close to the equator are hot throughout the year. Places that are further away from the equator have different seasons. So what was the reason that the places, those countries that are near to the equator usually have the hot weather there? Because those places are nearest to the sun, and the other countries that are slightly away or the farthest away from the equator, they will be enjoying the different countries. For example, our country that is not located to at the equator, Pakistan, so we are very blessed to enjoy all the four seasons. We usually enjoy the summer, spring, autumns, and winters, etc. So next term we have solstice. What is a solstice? Let me explain it to you. We often hear that 21st June is the longest day of the year, and 22nd December is the longest night of the year. How can we determine it? What was the reason that 21st June is the longest day all across the world, and 22nd December is the longest night? So what is the reason? Let me explain it to you. On the 21st June, the sun reaches at the highest point of the northern hemisphere. Okay, yes, let me explain it to you. So this is the northern hemisphere, and this is the southern hemisphere. So when the solstice happens, the sun reaches at the highest point on the 21st June. This is the highest point. So that day is the longest day in the whole year. 21st June is the longest day in the whole year, and the sun reaches at the lowest point in the midnight. When it reaches in the lowest point at the midnight, when it will reaches in 22nd December. So that will be the longest night. Okay, so when the sun reaches at the highest point, that will be the longest day, and when the sun reaches at the lowest point, that will be the longest night. And these only happen twice in a year. Okay, so when there will be the longest night, that is 22nd December, so the day will be the shortest one, and when the 21st June will be the longest day, so night will be the shortest one. And this process will be quite opposite in the this happens in the northern hemisphere, and this process will be quite opposite in the southern hemisphere, in which, so in the southern hemisphere, longest day is 22nd December and longest night is on 21st June. Okay, so those countries that are located in the northern hemisphere, their longest day is 21st June and longest night is 22nd December, and those countries that are located in southern hemisphere, the longest day is 22nd December, and longest night is 21st June. Process is usually opposite because the earth spins and we have the different things. I can read it out for you as well. Solstice. In the northern hemisphere, the sun reaches its highest point in the sky at the midsummer, that is 21st June, and its lowest point midwinter, that is 22nd December. Therefore, 21st June is the longest day of the year and 22nd December is the shortest day of the year. Each of the two times is called the solstice. This process is the opposite in the southern hemisphere, where the longest day is on 22nd December and the longest night on 21st June. So solstice always represent the longest days and the longest night. Next term. That we will explain. What is equinox? What does it mean? Equinox is the time when the length of the day equals to the length of the night. It only happens twice a year. So in the whole year, only it happens 2 times in a year, when the length of the days equals to the length of the nights. And when it happens, it is usually called there are 2 equinox. Number 1, spring equinox. It happens in the spring season. That is on 21st March. And the other is autumn equinox. That happens in the fall season. 23rd September. So always keep it in your mind that on 21st March, we have recently got through the 21st March in the last month, the length of the nights and the length of the day are usually equal. And similarly in the autumn, 23rd September, the length of the days and the length of the nights are usually equal. Alright, so how it could happen? Why? Have you ever think of? It is usually happen at the moment at which the center of the visible sun is directly above the equator. Alright, visible sun, this is, for example, this is the earth, this is the equator, and the sun is exactly above it. Okay, so this will be the equinox, spring equinox and autumn equinox, when the center of the visible sun, the portion of the sun that we can see easily, is directly above the equator. Let me read it out for you. Spring and autumn equinox. The word equinox is made up of 2 Latin words. Equi mean equal and nox mean night. The length of the days and nights are equal on this day of the year. The spring equinox, that is 21st March, marks the beginning of the spring in the northern hemisphere and the autumn in the southern hemisphere. As Pakistan is located in the northern hemisphere, so we can mark the 21st March as the spring equinox. On the 23rd September, 2 days and nights are of equal length. These are called the autumn equinox, marks the beginning of the autumn in the northern hemisphere and spring in the southern hemisphere. As I have already told you that Pakistan is located in the northern hemisphere, so 23rd September will be our autumn equinox and 21st March will be our spring equinox. I know these terms are bit difficult for you people, but I am here to clear it to you again. So please watch this video very carefully, and I will be giving you the home assignment, and the reference video will also be attaching with it. Thank you.